appreciate the introduction. Just to say that, Stefan, I think we've met each other for several years at different conferences, IT Web, CDO IQ, and we never really chatted until you left Telcom, BCX, and then all of a sudden we connected, and it's good to see PG here as well. And he can tell us all about your musical abilities. I see that you are open to fractional, which I was interested. Is that fractional ownership of Lucid, or what's it? Or is it whiskey? I heard whiskey is good. Fantastic. But Stefan, it's great to have you with us. And Mark, I can just read from your title and stuff like that you've got a lot to contribute. I hope that we can have a great time, and be really looking forward to your presentation. Thank you very much for sharing.
Okay, thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Howard. I'll maybe kick us off. Mark will be sharing the slides and doing a large part of the presentation, and I'll chip in. But wanted to just give a little bit of context, in particular for my participation. So I head up what we call a Global AI Innovation League on behalf of the League of Companies. And so League of Companies is a group of kind of experts across a whole host of different categories of work in and around the area of digital transformation. And so more recently this year, we've kind of increased our focus on this topic of AI. And in particular, in this ecosystem, Lucid AI is one of the key partners. And Lucid, Mark, as the CEO of Lucid AI, have developed the Think with AI framework and this body of work that we've really started implementing in South Africa and many other parts of the world. And so maybe before we kick off, I often just start these conversations with a little bit of a framing around almost how I think about what we're seeing happen in the world of AI. So many years ago, we kind of started carrying our mobile phones around with us, and these days they've become absolutely indispensable. They're a part of every aspect of our lives. I outsource so much of what I do to my phone, and nowadays even there's so much AI embedded in our phones. But in a similar way that we use our phones, whether that's to navigate to a new hotel in Saudi, Howard, or to kind of remind
it's
you
just
of
to find
your
Paul.
wife's.
It's really hard for me to find Paul. He wanders around and he gets lost, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can imagine that, Paul. And so in a similar way, AI is becoming a part of every aspect of our lives, and increasingly over the next few years, we'll see that being embedded in all of our work and in our personal lives, and so that really changes how we live and how we work, and so it becomes critical that we really think about how do we adopt that in our businesses? How do we, like Debbie said, start testing that in our personal lives? And in particular, I think about that in two kind of broad streams of context. The one is almost a productivity stream that says, yes, so this has significant implications for how I do my daily work. And so how can I think with AI to actually do more and kind of get better results? But then secondly, like any other technology, AI has many use cases, and so you might apply that to solve different types of problems. And so you'll kind of see some of those elements also come through the slides as Mark presents. But let me pause there and hand over to Mark. Mark, you're welcome. You've already been introduced, so the floor is yours. You're welcome to share the slides, and then if there's questions as we go along, you're more than welcome to jump in.
Please, they're welcome. Debbie, Howard, Stefan, thank you very much. And everyone here, I appreciate the opportunity to share the biggest challenge that we see when we're implementing AI. The conversation started with an agenda of events that are happening where we're going to be talking about AI data governance and how do we look at that portion of it. And the building that I'm sitting in right now, 11 floors up, I'll be leaving here to go and kick off a second day of training. And the training that we're going to be doing is how do we actually think with AI? How do individual workforce members, be it a frontline receptionist or an HR assistant or the CEO of the company, how do we leverage AI to help us to think, help us to mobilize quicker? And that's really the topic that we're going to be talking about today. So I love interactive feedback. We're going to go through a presentation today where we're going to talk a little bit about some areas that we talk about generally, but given the nature of who you are, the industry that you're from, and your ongoing understanding of AI today, I'm going to skip through some of the generalities that some people that we speak to need to address, like what is generative AI? For some people, as recently as yesterday, it's still a very novel and new concept. Debbie, you mentioned I don't want AI to know that much about me personally. There are team members in the training that I'm doing upstairs that are refusing to use AI, that are they basically say, no, even though it's responsible for the company, or required by the company, I'm not going to use it. Howard, yes, your hands up.
Yeah, and a lot of the comments I get is that people still believe that generative AI is cheating. The use of generative AI is cheating, and that also causes us to slow down because people see it as a situation of it's not your work. You're not doing any of the thinking. You're not and universities are also probably battling with this a lot more in terms of
very much so.
How do they enable it? And we had a lovely lecture from a professor from the University in California, San Francisco, and he told us about some of the challenges they have of turning that all around to basically say, instead of saying I don't want you to use Gen AI, where he's saying if you don't use it, then I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah. That's a fantastic point. What we're finding in universities across the board is just like, my daughter's in high school. So I look at that and say, okay, she asked me, well, why do I have to learn long division? So that you understand what the calculator's doing. And many times now she has to cite the work that she's doing. And it's really funny because this is life. This is where the state of AI is. And my daughter's high school is such a great position. Then we'll jump in the slides when we frame this. On one side of the hall, she's in an English class where she's reading Othello. She's reading A Streetcar Named Desire. And she will be suspended at the hint of the application of AI. She crosses the hall on Mondays and Wednesdays and goes into her computer science class,
right,
where they use a program called Replit to what's called vibe code, which is I don't need to know anything about coding, but I need to understand the principles and logic flow to be able to create, debug, and publish by the end of the semester an application that is utilizing AI. So that's the world that we live in. On one side of the hall, we're forbidden or it's taboo. On the other side of the hall, it is expected and required. And that's really what we're seeing in companies, big and small, literally around the world. And so I'm just gonna share the slides now. And this is not gonna be a formal slide deck. These are gonna be visuals that I'm gonna use to help us understand part of the conversation. And if it's okay with you, I might actually bust out a slide or two from elsewhere to help understand. Do you see a slide? Do you see
I see your
my
deck.
presentation?
We're seeing your presentation, yes.
Perfect. So generative AI from hype to strategic advantage really is kind of the core crux, but we're past the hype. Let's talk about some key things. So I'm just going to go through this somewhat quickly for a moment and just touch upon a few key elements. And so the fundamental shift, this is what we're talking about. And Howard, you brought up such a great point. Some people consider it cheating. So I ask you, is using an Excel spreadsheet to do bookkeeping cheating? Is using Word to spell check document cheating? Is using tools and technology, let's go into building a house. Is using a skill saw or a table saw cheating, or should I use a hand saw? At some point in time, technology catches up, so it's no longer cheating, but it's the expected norm, because that's where productivity lies, that's where opportunity lies. And I will put forward a thesis that basically says that the proper application of AI actually frees up time for cognitive thinking, for collaboration with colleagues, and we're seeing this on a daily basis. And so that's really it. So the question really kind of comes down to it is, yes, I'm not going to try to do justice to the conversation of AI in the data science world. AI when it comes to compliance with the various users of data. We're talking about, how do I actually begin to think with AI as a thought partner and as a tool? Okay, so that's really the starting point. I would love to understand, as we go through this, where everyone is personally in their journey, but also within their company, and also the clients that they work with. Where are they in their journey? Howard, comment.
Sorry to interrupt, but I
Please.
read a really amazing article from Carl Newport. He's the guy who did deep work, and he really plays between, the use of technology and the use of getting away from technology to understand that deep work. And he did a set of research on students in terms of how they were using ChatGPT and Gen AI. And he said he was really amazed that so many of them are now using it as a bouncing board. So they'd actually put their argument together, give it to ChatGPT, and then basically say to them, look, don't add anything, and I want to discuss this with you. So
Yeah.
it's almost like, I don't know, I'm sure you've done it when you do a write-up of your thesis. Oh my goodness, after a while, you just can't see the wood for the trees. And having someone to talk about it that will engage with you and find the holes, I thought that was fantastic, that use of that sort of, the ability to converse and that conversational engagement.
We actually, Howard, that's such a fantastic point, because we see the exact same thing, and this is why I jumped to this slide, is the ability to leverage AI as a thought partner. And so people ask me, well, how do I use AI? Because, for the uninitiated, it is what they see their kids do. They see what's on social media or what's on the news, and they don't understand the practicality of it. So starting at the top right-hand corner, under governance. So yes, you guys talk about data governance. We're also talking about additional governance. We're talking about, so again, I'll use the company that I'll be training after this, and they have chosen Microsoft Copilot as their primary AI tool. And so how do we get past the situation where, yes, Copilot's using ChatGPT 5.0, but it's still not functioning the way ChatGPT would, right? So same prompt, same everything, Copilot, ChatGPT, two different results. How do we deal with the governance around what we call shadow AI, where individuals have basically said, I don't care what the company says, I'm using it. I'm going to use it on my cell phone, or I'm going to do whatever. And they open up these vectors of governance and data privacy issues that we're running into, and they're doing it without even understanding the implications of it. So we're talking about a Word document that they're going to edit in ChatGPT because Copilot's not doing what they want it to do. How do we deal with that kind of activities that are happening? Or they're going out to some of the other tools to deal with. PowerPoint is really awful at AI when it comes to generating slides, but a program like Gamma is fantastic, but it's not part of the governance policy of the company. So how do we prevent those things? So we have tools and techniques, and we actually have some products that are as low as $60 a year per seat to be able to deal with shadow AI activities. Then the next portion of it is talent, and this is where we really, really light up. This is where our part of our passion is driven, is how do we help the talent begin, or the individuals begin to transform and think with AI. And so everyone talks about, oh, the robot's taking over, or AI is taking over my job, or we've heard it's not AI who's going to take over a job, it's somebody who understands how to use AI. And we take that a next step further, is as company owners, as leaders in companies, our companies are going to begin to suffer for the drain of talent. Because if we do not begin to adopt AI, the people that understand where I'm Canadian, so Mark, you'll appreciate this. People don't understand where the puck is going, and therefore they will be caught off that they don't understand that their people are leaving to go to another company that is embracing AI and training their people on how to use AI. And I said it literally this time last year, and we're now seeing the reports starting to show up that the talent is beginning to move. The other area that we see Gen AI and AI's impact is in cross-domain functionality. So here's a perfect example: is I've got a team that consists of legal counsel, a business analyst, and business development. And what they used to do is they used to go and all read a 400-page document. They would then go and quickly work on their summaries of what they need to do for this project, and they would spend about a half an hour trying to coalesce a plan. And then they would always be spending time second guessing. Well, hold on, did somebody forget about this? And did somebody forget about that? The new paradigm and the new way that they work is they allow AI to go in and analyze that document. Tell me what I need to know. Interrogate that document. It's 400 pages. Who's going to read 400 pages in a day or in a week with all the meetings and all the other stuff that we've got going on? We don't remember enough to be able to sit down and be able to articulate everything that's in that document. And so let's leverage AI to do that heavy lifting, so that we as a collective team can now ask it questions, interrogate. Howard, to your point about discussing and what-ifing and learning from this information, now we can begin to start collaborating and working together to help each other understand what the strategy can be. We can simply say, well, what if we did this? What if we did this? We can pull in 10 more documents and have it analyze those. We can pull in external resources, and we can leverage the power that's the human mind to be able to collaborate and come up with better solutions. And that is one of the key powers that people are missing out, that AI has from a business impact perspective. And then lastly, the workflow. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but there's a challenge, and it came about when we started analyzing why people were having such a difficult time breaking down the function or their role into an SOP, so that AI could then turn around and find out where it could best help. And what we recognized is that individuals that are on the autism spectrum, Asperger's, things like that, have a mindset that they're able to break down exactly what they do and articulate that. People who are what they would call neurotypical actually have a really difficult time trying to understand and articulate how they do what they do. It's a fascinating study, but it really impacts to how we look at leveraging AI and how we create the workflows. But when we did an analysis. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna have fun here with us, because you know what? Let's make sure we get the maximum out of today. So we did a work case study here. Okay. So what we did is we looked at the real world use case of catching up after a week's vacation. So how does all of this look? How do we pull all these things together? And ultimately what ended up happening This is just
Sorry,
the raw
just want to
files.
check. You look like you wanted
Yep.
to share another slide, but you're
Oh,
still
you
on the
don't see
same
the other
one.
slide?
Yeah, we're still
Thank
seeing the
you.
same one. Yeah.
Thank you. I will share again. Excellent. I appreciate that. Here we go. Excellent. Okay. There we go. Okay, so here's the slide. And so this is really the idea of how do we go through and that sinking feeling and overload of an inbox, and how do we leverage AI to help me think through the problem of a week's worth of emails and Teams communications and meeting notes and all of that kind of stuff, right? And so I'll just zoom in here a little bit because I know that that's really tight. But what we can do is we can use AI to help us scan the inbox, generate meeting summaries from Teams recordings and transcripts, and then ask for the human to review these AI summaries. And then the human now begins to start to look at judgment, starts to go through and understand exactly how do I need to make those key decisions when I'm back from personal time off, and the actions that are required and so on. But more importantly, when we did the analysis, this is what we saw. And this is the impact of using AI to clean up and catch up after we come back from work. So the yellow is the human doing the work of skimming all of your emails, maybe 2 hours to go through all your emails, another hour and a half to piece together all of the updates and wrap my head around things are going. Then chasing the team, another hour of, hey, Howard, what about this? And hey, Stefan, how about this? And what am I missing here? And then I've got to summarize that, and then I've got to go and act. All right, well, let's let AI do all of that heavy lifting. But we need to create a culture that thinks with AI, understands what's going on, because again, I'm pointing up, not to the heavens, but I'm pointing up to the 11th floor here, is that team members don't understand the culture and the power behind this and are unwilling to have meetings transcribed, not even recorded, just transcribe the meeting to help these kind of processes. So it's quite interesting on how all this stuff works. So I'll go back and share this, and you know, I'd love for some interaction. If there's any comments or things that you're experiencing, please do raise your hand and chime in. So you know, the big, yes, please.
Yeah, and I think what happens to us as well is that we tend to get frustrated with the process of going through all those emails that we start to skip and jump, and you know, we probably do.
Yep.
I mean, if
Guilty.
those emails are too big, probably a lot of the times we're not reading half of them. So I don't think we do a great job because we got to rush. And I also like that thing of for this meeting, prepare all of the emails that will contribute or help me with the meeting, which is
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's yeah, you're so busy, you're so overwhelmed, and you're already a week behind, and you're playing catch up for the next 3 weeks, and it's you know,
yeah.
it's why bother going on vacation? Well, now let's create that. But here's the reality, and this is what we see at the C-suite. You know, this conversation that I'm having upstairs started a year ago, and the CEO and the leadership and executive team and the board of directors are really excited. Oh, this is going to be great. But the challenge now is this blockage, these what we call these pilot purgatories, and these kind of situations where we're stuck, and that really kind of becomes a lot of the shift that we're dealing with. We've touched upon this. This really is kind of the challenge that people are dealing with, is where do I start? I got too many tools. It creates the paradox of choice. Too many tools. What do I do? How do I do it? I've got use cases that I'm dealing with, and I'm struggling to define how to get these things all set up. So there is a AI TRISM, which is the Trust Risk Security Management methodology that really helps us to understand and align the hype, the tools, and the business case, and bring all of this together so that we can really create strategic use cases and core business, and identify core business objectives, and align those two so that when we come in to do training and development, we now know the exact core objectives that we're trying to achieve. Okay. Resource gaps, again, we've got talent shortages. Change management is one of the biggest things that we're now seeing as the obstacle. We can train everybody. People want to be trained, but then it comes down to that change management. So think with AI for us is really about a habit. It's a habitual exercise that when I go into my email to draft an email or draft a reply, instead of just starting to type away, actually ask for a recommended response. And then I go and tailor it. It's the old saying, it's always easier to edit than create, right? So, you sit for days trying to create a PowerPoint or a Word document or some research information, and then you send it over to somebody. And in half an hour, they've hacked it all up, right? And it took you days. Well, why spend those days to create that information? You be the one that hacks it up. You use AI to leverage. And this is a mentality. This is a culture shift. This is hey, it's going to not be as productive for the next couple months until everyone begins to get this stuff and begins to implement it. And then the productivity ramp is going to go up, right? So that's kind of really what we talk about. The tech integration component of things. This is another obstacle. And one of my tags that I use all the time is that we need to take AI out of the server room and move it into the boardroom, because everyone wants to go and start grabbing tools and doing tech and what about this and what about this. And our training that we do, what we call the applied thinking with AI, it really starts the first day all about repositioning and getting away from the tech. We literally don't do anything besides a prompting exercise at the end. It's not until day 2, and that's actually 2 weeks after they've started and been doing homework, that they understand that now we're going to start looking at the tools and the tech. And that really is part of the overall side of it. And again, you guys understand the data side of it. You understand that we need to make sure that the data is in the right place, it's governed, it's clean, all that kind of stuff. You guys are experts on that stuff. And then the other part of it really is measuring the ROI. So how do we quantify the ROI? So what we're going to see is in the early days, labor productivity going down. Why? Because people are learning. It's the analogy that I use is it's like hiring a new employee. Okay, you've got to you've got to define the job description. You then have to go and interview a ton of candidates, which, that's fun and time and so productive of time use.
Yeah.
Then we've got to prep for them to come on board, and then we've got to put them on board, and we're actually going to spend days. I mean, think about the last person that you hired or worked with and you were responsible for training up. How many days or weeks did you invest into that person before they were in a position that they could actually be productive? Okay. I need you to think that AI, when we think with AI, this is the same thing. We are training our AI assistants or ourselves on a new skill set that's going to reduce our productivity, going to make things take longer. We're going to Diane's point, figure out how to learn to trust the results. And then we're going to become more productive, right? We've got the ethical considerations in terms of bias, and South Africa is a great situation where we've got Western models that are trained with a certain bias, and we need to make sure that those are understood. We deal with it when we deal with, say, Asian Chinese models, when we're dealing with some of the inherent data biases that we've got in terms of the training of the models. And then finally, we need to have the AI TRISM in place to be able to understand how does all this come together. And it's a challenging thing to piece all this together. And I liken it to say, if you've ever moved offices simultaneously to implementing a new CRM system and then merged with another company simultaneously, then you'll begin to understand the change management and the opportunity that's presented once we get through that section. Howard.
Yeah, I wanted to come back to the ROI because I think lately just the news and the presentation on how bad the ROI is with AI,
Yep.
It's quite shocking. The PMI said 80% of them fail. I think it was somebody else, one of the big PwC said there's like a 95% just of
McKinsey's report
failure
came back
for
97.
AI.
Yeah.
So
McKinsey
I
at
mean, this is
97% is crazy.
and then I went to go and see one of the big banks, and they just jumped onto Copilot, like you said.
Yep.
And they are battling to get, I mean, for the amount of money that they're forking out to Microsoft, and they really battling to get the people to use it. It's
change
not
management.
easy, this game.
No. Think about, again, there's a few gray hairs in the room. So think about it when the desktop computer came in and the secretary pool started to disappear and managers needed to start typing their own stuff.
Yeah.
Like what? Like, you know what I mean? Like there was a period in time where managers and leaders didn't type their own stuff and use their own computers, right? It's the same in this space. And there's fear, uncertainty, there's anger, there's the change management component is such a critical element, and people completely miss the ball. And when you implement Copilot, everyone thinks it's sold on it's this big solution, but in fact, it doesn't work until the user works, and we've got to change that mindset. Stefan, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think that's such a critical point, and I think one of the things that exacerbates that is just the technology itself. Hey, so if you go back a year and the early adopters started kind of testing, or maybe even 2 years ago started testing this, we have this understanding of what might be possible, but then when we try it in practice, then often it doesn't work, and as you say, it's painful initially, and but now we have this rapidly improving technology, and so we also need to kind of keep up with that and keep on testing and seeing, okay, so wow, this now actually is much easier than it was 3 months ago, and so I can actually now properly embed this in my workflow, my daily tasks, and so it's also keeping track of these changes, not just kind of trying something once and then not realizing that that's actually been solved or improved in the past few months progress.
The best thing to look at is if somebody says that's how it was working 3 months ago, the information's incorrect.
Yeah.
Right. You need to accept and develop the skill of adaptability. Right. That is one of the critical AI skills, is adaptability. The second skill is curiosity. As the second skill of adapting AI, has nothing to do with buttons and bits and bytes and prompts and all that kind of stuff. You just have to be, and that's not something that businesses, employees, managers, leaders are incentivized to do. You're incentivized to reduce risk. You're incentivized to keep things calm. And AI is not that. It just is not. Right. So, this is kind of really where things are at, this knowing doing gap, right? And we look at people that, I get it. I understand its importance. I understand where it's at. Then the understanding component is organized grasp of what and why, but then the how. That's where everyone is falling down. And Howard, to your point about the surveys, that the one survey, similar results, I think it was McKinsey that put it out. 97% of pilots fail. 93% of the pilots fail. Of the 7%, so now 100% of the ones that succeeded, only 30% of those were done with in-house talent. And the reason being is that they did not have dedicated chief AI officer, they did not have dedicated AI strategists, and they did not have dedicated people that were their sole purpose was to help the rest of the team implement AI. Period. And not to dig on big consulting, but big consulting is incentivized to go and sell the big project. We take a completely different approach. You need to enable the average person in the company how to think with AI, because when you think with AI, then you can go and look in the corner and go, that pile of paper that was printed out by somebody and dropped on my desk, can AI help me with that? Can AI help me with that process? Oh, can AI help me with that? Because when I think with AI, when I know what it's capable of doing, I may not know how to do it. And quite frankly, I don't think even trying to believe that I can figure it out on my own is where anybody's at today, right? Think about the person that understands that I've got Excel, then I've got a database, then I've got BigQuery or BI, and then I've got big databases. So if I'm thinking I'm creating an Excel spreadsheet or a table with math in Word, oh God forbid, but if I'm creating a table inside Word and I'm using my calculator to add up the columns, and it's a leap for that person to then grab Excel, create the spreadsheet and embed it. And we're talking about, hold on, you can actually do that inside a data warehouse and have an AI data validation layer and all that kind of stuff sitting on top of it. And they don't even know that stuff exists. How do we expect a company, a third-party company, to come in and implement huge Gen AI projects when nobody even understands what this stuff does? So let's start with understanding and move forward. Howard.
So I'm it's even more convincing now that if we don't get that AI readiness and growth to have that understanding, if we go and say, let's go and buy 2,000 or 10,000 licenses of Copilot, we're going to be throwing money away, buckets of money, until we get there. So
Yeah.
when is that tipping point, as Gladwell talks about, in terms of how do we get them over the tipping point, and what is the readiness assessment look like?
Yeah, so I'm going to slide up here. It has nothing to do with the question that you just asked. It's just moving through the slides for purpose of having a really well-rounded conversation here. To answer your question, it's really simple. We need to get. Let's look at a company sub 500 people. Okay, knowledge workers. Okay, I'm gonna make a distinction between knowledge workers and front-end workers. You can have a hospital, okay, with 5,000 people in it. 4,000 of those people use a front-end medical terminal, and they never interact with anything other than that medical terminal. Okay, those people, that 4,000 people, they're off the list. In a construction or mining industry, we might have 1,000 people, but 900 of them are out mining, doing stuff, and they interact with computers, but they don't interact as a knowledge worker. So it's the knowledge worker people that I'm talking about. So if we have a group of, say, 500 knowledge workers, okay, we need to make sure that first and foremost, leadership understands what's going on. They understand the direction of how this goes. Actually, you know what? Hold on. I'm gonna jump ahead because I have a slide that totally answers that. Silly me. Here we go. Think. This is our methodology, right? Let's see, which one do we have here? Yeah. Okay. So this is the short one. Okay, cool. So when we talk about the think framework, this is how we answer that question, Howard. This is how we don't go out and blow a ton of money, because if we look at think starts with teaching. So our thesis in looking at all of the failures that are out in the marketplace, including our own, and we look at it and we say, what is the underlying problem? The underlying problem is that people don't understand what it means and what's possible when we introduce generative AI into the business. They've got concepts. Then the second thing is they don't understand the true compliance and data privacy and governance that's required from issues like shadow AI. They don't understand how they need to consolidate data. I'm not talking bits and bytes and numbers. I'm talking about files and project folders, and centralize them inside. If we're talking about a Copilot environment, centralize them inside of SharePoint, so that now SharePoint has the ability to work with them. They don't understand how to take an archived email account from somebody who has since left the company and make that discoverable and interactive with Copilot. So these are the things that we need to do. They don't understand the culture change that needs to be leader-led, that needs to be driven, and it also needs to be held accountable, right? Just because you're buying these Copilot licenses doesn't mean that everyone's going to use them. So part of that is an accountability and a compliance to that. That's number two. Number one. Number two is then we have to look at what are the strategic objectives within the company, and then let's look at some small resources. Let's look at some small areas that we can begin to align AI with the strategic direction of the company. Pull those together. JB, you've got a question, sir, or ma'am.
Yeah, Mark, I just want to just get back because I'm a little bit perturbed about what you mentioned there about the thing about actually email archiving. So someone
Yes.
leaves the company and you are, okay, from a point of view from the company, that'll be good for generative AI to go and scan what was said, what you as a person said in that company a year or so ago, to actually summarize stuff. But what about privacy for that person who left, who maybe something they said, which is most probably true, but it could be interpreted in a wrong way, but now they're not there to actually defend themselves with what suggestion they made. So now we're in a slippery actually slope. So what is your view on that?
Yeah, JB, I think that's a fantastic point. Yeah, we can't speak, they can't speak from the grave, as they say, right? So how do we defend the action? How do we understand what the context was of the information? And so again, we have to go back up to leadership, and we have to understand, what do we do with that information? What do we do with those old archives, right? And they have to be taken. So today in Canada is a day that we honor. It's called Truth and Reconciliation Day, as my fellow Canadian with a C in Calgary had mentioned. And here's how I look at it. In the 17 and 1800s, it just made sense to go into Indigenous environments, take the children from their families and put them into institutional education and teach out the nativeness. In the 1700s, that was normal. In 2025, that's horrific. And so part of that is we have to understand the context. And then we also have to understand within that, what are we using that information for? So the use case that we're working on right now is two people left a company 3 years ago. The company is now going through a government audit, and there's no one to speak about the decisions that were made and why they were made 2 and 3 years ago that are now coming up today. So they're using the archival information with a filter. And this goes to the other part of this thing, what we call human in the loop. We look at something and we say that it has to be, you can't just delegate and abdicate responsibility to AI. You need to use the information to help you understand, to assimilate information, consolidate it, to inquire about it, but never abdicate responsibility of the interpretation of that information to AI. So me, as the person, if I'm looking at that report, I need to understand and take that into context. I need to interrogate a bit more and say, well, what was the situation around that? What was the information? How do we think about that? And so it's not for me as the consultant trainer and kind of thinker about this stuff. It's not for me to decide. It's for the company to decide. And then going forward, it's also for the company to put into their employee documents and their use cases about how archive data and how things will be dealt with and how we handle that information. I don't have a full answer to that, JB, other than we need to understand the context, we need to understand the framing of it, and we need to use it as part of a decision-making process, but not abdicate responsibility to it.
Actually, definitely, I agree with you with the context, because you say 2 years ago when you worked for a company, you made a decision based
Mhm.
on information you had, and you made the
Correct.
best decision. Now information could have changed, which you
Yes.
did not have then. So, so now actually you're not there to defend yourself and say, well, this is why I made that
Right.
decision. Now, actually, hopefully, Gen AI will be able to be filtering out, or kind of giving a summary or a synopsis for actually people to see. That's what we would hope,
Well,
to give a
JB,
summary as
JB,
well. Now,
yeah, exactly that. So part of that is the prompting, part of that is understanding, but then part of it's also forward thinking. So I'm going to record all of my meetings, transcribe them at least, so that if and when I leave, or if and when somebody is let go, and or we bring in a new person, we don't lose that institutional knowledge, and that person can now get caught up to speed. So from today forward, it's as Oprah says, when you know better, you do better, right? So now that we know that we have this tool, let's create the information, and where required, what were the context around why we made those decisions? And I would argue that some of those decisions were made in haste. Some of those decisions were made on bad data, bad information. Why? Because we had a clock ticking, and we have a mountain of other responsibilities, and we couldn't process it enough. Now, moving forward with I can actually spend time inquiring about the data, being inquisitive, challenging the assumptions, asking what ifs, and then bringing in colleagues to help evaluate those decisions. So, yeah, Jamie, you brought up such a fantastic point. And I don't know, I don't have the answer,
mhm. But yes,
but
it's very
it's
intriguing.
one
But
that
actually,
needs to be
thanks.
dealt.
So, actually, sorry for actually
No,
moving
no, no, perfect.
slightly a little bit actually away topic.
And
But I'm very in okay, personal information and things like
Yeah,
that is very
yeah, well, for
important.
sure. Well,
and
it
and
really speaks to keeping personal data and company
Mhm.
data separate, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, obviously.
Howard,
And Mark, there's a question from Jane. She actually
yes,
asked, "What about the over-reliance on AI?"
yeah,
And I think that is also an important point. And I think you did address it by that being inquisitive, by helping you engage in a deeper
yeah,
way, rather than just this is face value and this is all I need to worry about. So
yeah.
um,
We have in our training, we have specifically a slide that talks about this. So on the left-hand side, sorry, on the right-hand side, we have 10-80-10 and 50-20-30. And this is a framework that we use to look at the effort and the duration. So when we talk about 10-80-10, 10% upfront duration, or sorry, effort by the human. 80% of the work and the heavy lifting done by AI. And then the final point to my point to JD was that the human has to be involved in the final analysis, decision making, interpretation of the information. It's just like data, right? Like
yeah,
you can have data tell you something, but then you've got to gut check it. Like you have to look at that information and say, okay, I know it told me that we did 5,000 widgets, but is that possible? I don't know. Something's wrong. So we can't just blindly rely on that. But then the ratio below that, 50-20-30. And how this works is if you have a task that's going to take you an hour, or you're going to dedicate an hour to complete something, 50% of that time, 30 minutes, needs to be in the upfront prep work, understanding what my outputs are, understanding what and designing what I'm trying to achieve. The 20% in the middle, that's where you're collaborating with AI. You're back and forth, you're asking questions, you're interrogating it, you're thinking with AI, you're go, oh, that's a really good idea. Let's explore this, let's do this. Then the 30%, the 30% of that is you now taking responsibility for the work that you and AI collaboratively work together, and you go out and collaborate with colleagues, you frame it, you validate it. It's trust but verify. It really is part of that conversation. And you cannot, and I'll say this till I'm blue in the face, you cannot abdicate responsibility of the information when you're using AI. Now, the other part of this too is this notion of cognitive decrease. I can't get anywhere in this world without my GPS on my phone, right? Stefan alluded to that very, very early days. I am now directionally impaired. Okay. It's because my inner compass doesn't work anymore. Okay. We cannot let that happen to our ability to see, think, look at the information, look at the reports. We actually have to strengthen that by really putting a lot more energy into the thinking component up front to ask the right questions. And because I know that I can read a report, a 400-page report in 5 minutes with AI, I now have that ability. But there's that learning curve of going, can I do it? How do I do it? Yes, this is how I do it. So, Jay, does that help answer that question? And feel free to jump off mute if you want to, or take the chat.
Just check, Jane. Jane, was that okay?
My question was answered properly. Thank you so much. That makes
You're very
sense.
welcome.
Yeah.
Good. And thank you. That's a fantastic question. It is a critical element, and it's part of thinking with AI. A very dear friend, colleague, mentor of mine uses the analogy of thinking in AI. No, I think it's a thought partner. I think you need to distract the two, but also, and this is what I teach my 15-year-old daughter, is that you just can't just throw up your hands and go, oh, this is what it is. You can't look at your calculator and go, oh, the answer is 25 when it's supposed to be -2, because you missed a step somewhere in the formula. It's no different with AI. It's only as smart as we help it be, and it's as dumb as we let it be. Yeah, he points there. Okay. Let's Howard. Yep.
Yeah, I think I remember having a debate with someone. We were spending time in Saudi, and we had a debate, and the one person was convinced about a certain aspect, and we said, no, and I challenged him. I said, I'm not sure whether I agree with you, but let's have a look when we get back. And when he went back, the way in which he engaged with ChatGPT was asking for confirmation and not questioning. So he almost wanted acknowledgement from ChatGPT, or rather than the questioning. And so we also have to change the way in which we frame these things as well, because it'll come back saying, yes, you're right, and good question or good answer, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's
excellent.
That's great.
RJ?
You're welcome to go,
do you have a
RJ.
question?
Sure.
Sorry,
Oh,
Rob,
RJ,
do you want to ask a question?
You're on mute there.
Rob, and then Paul.
Okay, I'll go until Rob finds the unmute button.
It wasn't you, PG. It wasn't you.
yeah, I'm trying. Is Howard talking about me? I can't remember this conversation. Just want to share something similar, which is aligning to what you just said, Mark, about. I really like your quote, by the way. It's only as clever. How did you say? It's only as smart as you help it to be.
Right.
So,
and it's as dumb as you let it be.
And as dumb as you let it to be. So, in preparation for our training here, I updated one of our slides, and I just wanted a different, sort of introductory picture that we had in our slide deck, and I wanted to show, and I used what did I use? Was it Gemini? I think it was Gemini. And I generated the image, and I asked it to generate an image of a Saudi man sitting in front of a computer with some big screens and some data models on the screen. And he did a good job of that. And I then asked it to generate me one with a Saudi woman. Pardon me. Howard, I picked up a cold here. Can you believe it? My wife and kid was both sick for the whole week, and I managed not to pick up a bug, and I picked one up here. Anyway,
last week.
Yeah, and anyway, and the Gemini generated a picture of a Saudi woman with an open face. You know, they had the scarf around the hip, the open face, and here in Riyadh, by choice, many women choose to actually still cover up completely. And so I asked Gemini, I said, please use a cover up. Well, I looked up what it is. It's up. That's right.
Yeah.
And I asked ChatGPT to add this, and it didn't want to. It says no. That will create a stereotype. So I had to start to argue with Gemini. I said, look, I am in Riyadh. People here do this by choice. And I basically told it you're being biased. You're being biased of not wanting to give me this picture. And eventually it gave me a very good one with a woman and a man together and so on. But just that it just makes me think of what you said. You need to help it to understand the context and so on, right? It's a machine. It's not. It'll pick up that there's some sensitivity in the world around this particular subject, but the context is key.
Yeah, and that's the other part of it too, is you have to understand the unique bias of each of the models. Certain models will actually not allow for that to happen, right? You know, when we were, so here's a perfect example, is a year ago when we were first putting together some decks and some presentations for South Africa, I was intentionally trying to introduce a more diverse boardroom of individuals. And all of the people came back as Black. And I'm like, well, no, it's diverse. We need to put some white people. And it's like, well, you don't understand the requirements and all this stuff. And I was like, well, hold on. No, that's not, the company is a mixed gender or mixed race company. So how do we do that? And I apologize, by the way, as a Canadian, I don't understand all of the nuanced sensitivity. So I just want to acknowledge that I'm not a Canadian. So we have different issues. That's why we ordered shirts today. But so from that perspective, I found it difficult to try and create images a year ago. Today, literally like 3 weeks ago, it's not a problem. So it's really understanding the bias and the tools and what they're capable of doing, and also what they're not able to do. Part of what we do is we talk about what's not possible, right? RJ, you still had your hand up. Should we move on or?
Oh.
Okay, let's just move on here real quick.
He's got it.
Yes,
he's got it. Well done, Rob.
At last, he's got it. I just had to do that to show Howard I hadn't fallen asleep.
Hey,
here we go.
I find this very stimulating, but also very repetitious. If I had hair to tell you how old I was, it would be very white. So what's required today, I think, is patience. If we have a look at the adoption of technologies going back into the history and whatever, whether it's electric light bulb or the computer without programming or whatever, it took a long, long time. But today, I think it's going to be far faster, the adoption of AI, than it has most other technologies, primarily because it's going to be driven by competition. People get to the point where they realize what they're going to lose by not doing it. But what is required is a couple of very, very good, stimulating, inspiring case studies.
Yes.
And what excites me about AI is the chats by Musk and the other adoption or the pushes of AI is the big picture, the one that says we'll put an end to poverty.
Yeah.
And I do think that kind of aspiration is on the cards. And for anybody, that's got to be like a number one prize that any other technologies has not managed to even come close to. Yeah. So I think it's a case of patience and pushing away and looking for that case study, that successful case study.
Yeah, they're coming. I think we're still a year away from a lot of that stuff. I mean, I know what the futurists are saying, and I know what the leaders are saying, and then there's the practical on the ground situation that we're dealing with. And you're right. Patience is critical here. walking into projects, walking into pilots with a very clear understanding of what we're trying to achieve. Everyone thinks this is the holy grail, and it's, wave a magic wand and it's all going to fix itself because AI can do these amazing, wonderful things. Yeah, it can, and we still need people, and and that's really where the framework comes in. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that perspective because, yeah, patience is there, and as you mentioned, yes, every technology adoption has had its flow, and the peers, the people that are really excited about this stuff, oh my God, this is gonna be great. But let me ask you this, how many data platforms and data environments do you guys walk into that are still stuck in the 80s and the 90s, right? That have got like some kind of Cobalt or C++ thing running on top of it, and the person that coded that stuff is long gone and dead, right? And it's still running a section in the corner of the company that nobody knows about that, oh my goodness, I hope nothing breaks, right? Like it's all there. I just want to kind of wrap this up, and then we can move on to some questions, I think, and just kind of touch upon the last little bits here. When we think with AI, we teach, we harness, and part of the teaching, by the way, is this type of conversation. This is the importance when we begin to look at implementing and leveraging AI with inside companies. Then we go through and we create an implementation plan. That implementation plan both is about how do we set governance, compliance, privacy laws, what tools, not what tools, but what is our approach to leveraging technology? What are we going to do for small use cases? What are we going to identify as quick wins? So that, and then if I could make this a little different, I would put implement and nurture kind of at the same level, because simultaneously to that, we need to now begin to nurture the people. This is where the training comes in. This is where 16 hours of training comes in on how to help people go through that next step and really begin to understand what it means to think with AI. And that really is that nurturing component. And only then can we really begin to identify and select unique custom tools. So for example, this client, they were using Copilot for 6 months, recognized that they needed another tool to help with contracting, reviewing contracts, the legal side of things. And we helped them evaluate what tool they should use. But it was because people understood what they were trying to do. So, it's the hammer, right? Go grab me a hammer. I say to my 15-year-old daughter, I don't know what hammer's coming back. Is it a sledgehammer? Is it a finishing hammer? Is it a tiny little nailing hammer? Or is it a framing hammer? Hey, can you go get me the small hammer because I need to put a nail in the wall. Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Now I know what it is. So it puts that context into place. So we know what key tools. It's the technology, the tools, the processes, the systems. That's kind of really where it's at. And I know kind of we've been going now, and we've got just a few minutes left here together with us. I just kind of want to make sure we haven't missed some of this stuff. Right. So we talk about, and I do a lot of marketing. I'm not a marketer. But really it's okay, well, how the heck do I do this? How the heck do I move beyond theory of what this conversation is? How do we move and really understand what is this framework that Mark's talking about? What is this think concept? And so, kind of from there, really what we invite you to do is book a call with us, set up some time to meet with Stefan. I'm happy to attend those meetings. And really let's talk about how can we adapt and figure out how we can help you, your team, your company, your clients think about and think with AI as a tool so that they can then lead with AI. And ultimately, to RJ, to your point there, is really about thriving with AI and achieving that goal. It's not going to happen in 6 months. I'll tell you that. Can it happen in 18? Sure. But it has to start somewhere. And every day that we don't move forward on this topic is another day that team members are looking around and going, I think I'm going to go over there, or that the competitors or other companies are leapfrogging because they are leveraging and utilizing these tools that we have in front of us. And so Yeah, so there's some references there. Yeah, so let's just open up. I'll stop sharing here, but let's open up to any other additional questions. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Mark. Mark, maybe just a question. I mean, in some of the work that we do, maybe even something like applied thinking with AI, how do we move people kind of along that adoption curve to kind of start actually? So often when I do training, I mean, it's powerful, it has an impact, but 3 months later, I kind of either struggle to remember what I've learned. It's how do we maybe just share a little bit about how we make this habit kind of in people's lives?
Yeah, great question. So it really is a habit, right? It's a habit. So for those of you who can remember, you'd ask a question and somebody said, well, just go Google it, right? Now it's a habit. We Google it, right? How do I get from point A to point B? I don't know, some of the GPS address. Before, we used to grab paper and map or ask people for directions. Now we type in the address in GPS and away we go. Or we do those kind of things. So it really is about building the habits. We implement a habit methodology. So when we go through our training, we actually implement a 30-day and then a 90-day habit routine. And each person identifies where they're at in their personal journey of AI adoption. There are people that are the leaders. They're December 22, they just was like, okay, I'm in this and I'm going to figure this stuff out. Those people are the leaders. So the habit is to share. The habit is to nurture and help. For the new person that doesn't use, if you're in a Microsoft environment, doesn't open up Copilot chat to start thinking about something. Your habit is, I'm going to open up chat and I'm going to ask a question. And so it's that process. The second part of it is, starting up with a pilot, starting up with a small group of individuals. Don't try and boil the ocean, as they say, and identify what becomes the AI implementation team. I'm of the age where there was that TV show called the A-Team, and so now we're looking at the AI team. But anyways, the AI implementation team, and these are the people the champions, the evangelicals that are running around the company going, "Oh my God, I just saved X number of hours. I just did this. Wasn't this fantastic?" And they share that openly, willingly to help their colleagues. That is part of that cultural shift that we're trying to help these businesses go through.
Great, thanks, Mark. Let's open to the floor. I wonder if there's anybody else with another question or something that you would like to ask. I'm sure that yes, JB.
Actually, always me. I'm always
Yes.
trying to get. Okay, so I've got a little mark on what is your view. All right, so this is I may go into a real rabbit hole of something because
we'll pull you out.
I guess AI. What would or what? How could Gen AI help from and it can be from a high level with things like actually agile, development, because the one thing I hate of Scrum and Agile is all these ceremonies and the time wasted every day on actually Agile. I guess, how do you think that Gen AI and or could help us to make these things less bearable and things faster or more efficient?
More bearable.
More bearable.
I don't know.
They're already unbearable. I don't want
to. Actually, sorry. I'm very when I get to I'm gonna start looking at okay, I just want to die if I actually next meeting or
we have a client.
These ceremonies.
We have a client that they have 4 people. It's a 100-person company. They do construction for renewable energy projects. They have, I don't know, about 100 odd people in the company. About 75 of those people are dedicated to project development, construction, implementation, and running. So there's 4 people that are dedicated to uploading and maintaining Oracle P6 Gantt charts and all that stuff, and it's atrocious. They have 4-hour meetings for every team, and some people are in 16 hours of meetings every week to update the Gantt chart. Like, are you like, it's maddening. So part of that really is setting a culture that how do we pull in this information? How do we articulate that and then update that? And part of that is leveraging AI for smaller meetings that can roll up. So creating the workflow pipeline, if you will. So you and I are having a discussion on whatever it is. Okay, have that discussion roll up, automatically get transcribed, pushed up to the Scrum Masters and those people to be able to highlight, this has been done, this has been actioned, update what needs to get done, so that the stakeholders in the project can then be communicated effectively. So instead of collectively coming together, let's leverage AI to take those sound bites and all those things, summarize them and put it in a meaningful package that then people can then very quickly look into. And I can then create my own prompt, if you will, but my own process by which I take your full transcript and I have it listen for things that are important to me. Oh, Mark and Joan, we're talking about, I don't know, whatever. They weren't talking about something else that's important. I can now go back. So I don't have to spend the hour with you guys. I can interrogate that conversation and say, oh, did they talk about this? No, they didn't. I'm going to ask about that. Right. So it gives us that context. The other part of it too, then, is setting our reporting up so that the information then rolls up to the people that need to update the charts and the Gantt and all that kind of stuff. That's one part of it. On the flip side of it, when we're looking at product development and development of things, vibe coding, if you've seen it, what vibe coding is doing to the upfront development side of things, and as a result, the ongoing project development, is that the old way is we'd sit down for 3-4 months and come up with a project development guide and documents and have hours of consultation around what if scenarios and all that stuff. I can now take a use case with a bunch of data. I can go and vibe code out, I'll call it a pre-beta, pre-MVP model. And I can chat with it and say, oh, I want this, it doesn't do this, create this validation, do this. I can do that in a couple hours. And then what I can then do is I can say, now, this is kind of what I want, and it functionally works. I can go take it to the stakeholders and say, is this what you guys are thinking about? Is this what you wanted to see? Is this how you want to work the data? Is this what you wanted to make happen? Yeah, it is. That's great. Okay, cool. Then I can now hand it over to the team that actually goes and does the proper, I'll call more robust programming side of it. And so what happens is we can take that development time and condense it down into literally days, from months down into days. I don't think that we are at a position where the average company can completely lay off their entire dev team. I think we're at a position where the product design, development, and all those kind of things that timeline can condense, so we can get to prototype, we can get to ideation, and we can get to that notion very, very quickly. So with that, does that help answer that?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think that answers it well. I'm just, but what you've now mentioned is that it actually then boils down to, but that's the whole thing of Agile, is that still design. We do not spend enough time designing. And actually, development is easy once you have the design. Actually, then it's all fine. But it's that design part, and okay, I think that's where I'm sort of thinking.
Sorry to interrupt. Go on, you say.
Actually, where can AI actually help us with design to actually make that design window a little bit smaller? I think that would be great. Or to think about something like that.
What it also does is it takes the design window, but also puts in practicality a use case. It puts the rough interaction, the UI and the UX in someone's hand, not in 6 months from now, not in 3 months from now, but today. I have an idea. I go away. I come back 2 hours. Here you go. Is this what you guys were talking about? Yeah, it is. Now, because again, that's that point. It's really easy to edit someone else's work. It's really hard to create from scratch. And so we've got designers, we've got business use case individuals, stakeholders, people that have the vision of what they want, but they can't articulate what it's supposed to do. If they've never been in that space, it's so difficult. We'll now let them play with a toy replicate of what the big picture looks like. That's something that people are missing out on right now. And 20-year-olds are making $1 million apps off of it. It really is the next big thing that I think we can definitely tackle, especially in many of your fields.
Okay, thank you. No, and the one thing I really like is this fact that you say that you actually push up information to people, so that so a designer, well, I'm a data architect. You do, and you speak to people, and you bring that, and then that gets summarized and it gets pushed up to, say, the project manager, or the product owner, and they see these things, and oh yes, but the architect and the security people said there's going to be a security problem. Oh, okay, I don't know about that. So then at least that gets actually churned, and it's not this endless meeting, maybe next week, and then there's another meeting about that, so then it's all information flowing actually very quickly. So actually that I like, actually that idea. Thanks very much.
Sorry,
you're welcome.
Let me just check. Are there any, quite a few people are dropping off. Any final questions for Mark?
If not, I'd just like to close on this point. Howard brought up the idea that there's a lot of failures going on in AI implementation, and we see them happen all the time as well. And it really comes down to trying to boil the ocean, trying to come up with really, really big projects at the beginning, and stepping back, and let's have everyone just really kind of begin to test this out, begin to use Google, kind of as that analogy, and just try and search for something and then begin to develop that habit. And so what we'd love to do is, not sell you anything. We'd love to have a conversation. Part of our mandate at Lucid, but more importantly, Gale at large, which is the Global AI Alliance, our goal is, look, we can help businesses move past where they're at today, help them achieve more with the same resources, help them just really reduce the stress in the workforce, so that people can then begin to think better, can begin to actually enjoy their work again. And all of the other areas that goes along, that we just want to help. We just want to talk to you and say, hey, are you doing some training? Where are you guys at? Look, here's some tips and some suggestions. If you're interested, then great. We host the training again. It's like, I don't know, can't remember what it is, but it's like, I can't remember how many rand, but it's like $150 US. Like it's ridiculously cheap, because we want everyone to at least have the tools to be able to go do it themselves. And if they want, then we got a whole team of people that can help. But it really is about, how do we take today's conversation and get it out of a discussion and move that into action. And that's really the objective of where we're going. So,
well, thank you very much. So let's bring it to an end. We're right on past. Thanks everybody. Thanks Mark, and thanks Stefan for organizing it. Really appreciate it, and we certainly hope you guys do a great job of help us get the people past the challenging parts, that we can move on. But thank you very much. Thanks everybody.
My pleasure. And if there's anything we can do to help out, hit up on LinkedIn.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Stefan. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.